right, what is up, y'all? What is up? Okay, so we back at it. I didn't say my name in the last one. That's my little intro music right there. But I didn't say my name in the last video, which is JAE Gems. Please like, share, subscribe. Especially on that share button. Please share. I'm getting to a point where I just kind of want to understand the background, or not understand, overstand the background of what people are doing and how people are doing it and why people are doing it. I in this video that I'm listening to, which I'm about to bring you guys in on, pretty much breaks it down of what's going on in today's society. Um, what how we can counteract this and what we can do to spot the people that we need to spot so we can prevent them. MLK, JFK, uh, Malcolm X, Tupac, Nipsey Hussle, um, so we can prevent all of them from happening all over again to these up and coming people that's coming in the game and want to change it, such as myself. So I rewinded it back to a very important part of the video. Um, Hold on, let me turn on these lights. Alright, so I rewinded it back to a very important part of the video, um, which I wanted to start this video on the first like 5 minutes of it. So let me go ahead and get it started. These are the four things that are going on in today's society that they set in place in the 1700s. So let's get it.
The multiculturalism and cultural diversity started in 1705. They passed a law at the same time, said, how do we control black folk now? They said, now that we got all these blacks coming to the country, we got a good thing going. They said, because now all over Europe was being advertised, if you want to become wealthy and powerful, go to America. We guarantee if you go to America, we give you free land and free labor. You'd have to be an idiot not to get rich. You don't have to do anything. We'll give you all the land you want and and England started a franchising system, so which means even if you couldn't afford to buy slaves, we had a franchising concept, which means England would give you the land and give you the slaves. All you do is pay them a commission, just like McDonald's and Burger King. That's where the whole franchising concept came from. It was from England with slavery. And so people rushed into this country. But they had to set up external controls, saying, how do we control them when they get here? With all these blacks coming into the country. Because I just told you, 6 out of every 7 persons coming across the Atlantic were black folk. They were pouring into the country. But they want to make sure enough whites are here to benefit and get the fruits of black folks' labor. And so they passed the cultural diversity, which says, the cultural diversity law says, for every 5 blacks you own, you must have 1 white person. You must always have 1 white person there to monitor, to make sure that black folk are being monitored and kept under control, that you understand what they're up to. That law stayed into effect and never went out of effect. Now comes 1710. Now when 1710 came, here's the main point of my talk today. 1710 did something that is totally devastating. Totally devastating. The Virginia colony in 17 passed what they call meritorious manumission. Meritorious manumission says, what we're going to do now that we put up the external controls in 1705, we must have internal controls. We don't have the time to go around and monitor and watch all these black folk coming into this country. We must build in some kind of internal management control. We must build in a way like the Rodney King syndrome that kind of thing. We must build into black folk an inappropriate behavior pattern. We must teach black folk to see things upside down in an unrealistic manner. And what they did very systematically was like taking glasses and painting pictures on it upside down. And we found out in laboratories in sociology and psychology that even if you paint the world upside down for a person to put glasses on their eyes, we found that subjects can learn to live upside down. They learn how to adjust their reach and what they're doing. And we watched it over and over again in experiments with young people in school, where we paint the pictures upside down and say, what do you see? And the mind has the ability to flip things back over to where the reality becomes the unreal. That the unreal becomes the reality. And once you do that, you got your people nailed to the wall. So meritorious manumission came into effect in 1710 and says, we will reward, we will recognize, we will set free any black person does one of four things. One, if you in fact will save a white person's life. I told you about the young man on the boat with the eagle. 5, 6 years before that.
In movies,
if you save a white person's life, you will get your freedom. 2, if you protect the white person's property. 3, if you invent something that a white person can make wealth and power off of, some kind of an invention. And 4, if you in fact will squeal on, inform on, or tell on your own people. That was called meritorious manumission. Now, you all might say, why is that important? I'm going to tell you that.
Hold on, y'all. Meritorious ammunition. Meritorious ammunition. Hold on, yeah, I'm sorry. Meritorious. There we go. They really don't have anything on it. I don't have nothing really on there. Okay, so there we go. It was spelled wrong. Okay. Is a British medal awarded to sergeants and warrants of officers of British Armed Forces for long and meritorious services. That's just the award. All right, let's put that in there. Hold on. You want it back. It got some truth to it, cause okay, there we go. No, because it's dealing with the British Army and the United States Army, so it got some truth to it. But let's rewind it, because I just looked it up in Google. So
If you, in fact, will squeal on, inform on, or tell on your own people. That was called meritorious manumission. Now, you all might say, why is that important? I'm going to tell you, that was so devastatingly important. And the reason it was so important is because that created a magnificent control system that has never been duplicated. Never been duplicated. As a matter of fact, it's only been replicated one time that I know of, and I'm usually pretty current on most issues in this country, psychological, sociological, historical, and educational in this country. Only one time it's been duplicated. It was duplicated in the 1950s. The communists duplicated it in Korea. They call it brainwashing. Now, you might ask, what is brainwashing? Now, typically, people in the 1950s, when it happened in the Korean War, we talked about brainwashing. See, now I was a safety and survival engineer for my squadron. I was in a Marine tac squadron. My primary responsibility was to teach my people how to survive. We had a school for brainwashing in Barbers Point, Hawaii. Teach them how to survive. What's brainwashing? Well, most people, at least the guys in the Marine Corps, they thought that brainwashing would be some kind of a inhumane way of treating people. That it would be no less than pulling out fingernails, driving bamboo splinters between the joints, hanging people up in the cold and castrating them, what we call the Chinese water torture. But brainwashing was none of those things. Was none of those things. Brainwashing was simply a very sophisticated form of re-education. And see, for you all in the auditorium this morning, brainwashing, so you'll always remember, is nothing but group therapy run in reverse. We always remember that. Now, the whole point of group therapy is to bring people together. Brainwashing is to turn it backwards and scatter people apart. And that was very effective in Korea against our troops. And see, now I'm going to show you the different parallel of what happened in 1710 and what happened in 1950, so you can understand the implications of what's happened to black folk in America. Otherwise, you can't deal with the issue. So in 1950, we had approximately 7,000 Americans in prisoner war camps in North Korea and China. 7,000 Americans have been captured and put into war camps before they were subjected to brainwashing. And after they were subjected to brainwashing, starting from the time they were captured, do you know that in that course of time, almost 4 years, we did not have one single solitary American prisoner to escape from a prisoner war camp? That had never happened in the history of this nation. That you can contain that many soldiers in one or two places and never have one to escape. Not one escaped out of 7,000 in almost 4 years. And to tell you the truth, in some of those camps, they didn't even have fences or walls up. Some of them didn't even have guards. And our people could not escape because of the techniques of brainwashing that was used on them. You would say, now, what was happening to them? They were being devastatedly re-educated. And this is the same identical technique that was used in 1710 on black folk. The whole concept of integration was the same thing as today. They scattered them. Now, what happened in Korea? In Korea, we noticed certain kind of things were happening to the prisoners. They didn't act like prisoners anymore. See, when a guy when he was captured as a prisoner, the first responsibility was to try to escape, not to participate, not to cooperate with the enemy, not to compromise one's principles, but to always try to fight, resist, and get out, and to compete to help your own people to escape if you can. Didn't happen in Korea. Because you see, brainwashing, reverse technique of group therapy, first of all, what it did, it divided the soldiers against each other. divided the soldiers against each other. And there's a whole revolutionary principle that says that a revolution comes when two people get together and begin to conspire. You can never have a revolution or an insurrection on earth as long as you drive a wedge between the first two people. If you drive a wedge between the first two people, you'll never have a revolt. And in Korea, we never had the revolt. Secondly, people can only...
Now think about what they doing to us right now, especially the hot sauce shop. It's been 400 years. They know that. They put this plan in place. They put the hot sauce shot in place a long time ago. Obama spoke about it. Now here it is. All right, so this was a plan to divide everyone because we don't need anyone getting along with us so that we can move forward. Bitcoin is a major advantage that a lot of us need to use as far as when we invent things, when we have a service. We don't accept American money anymore, like, or we just create our own coin. That's possible. It's possible to create our own cryptocurrency coin and establish our own within our own community. But let's keep going. My bad, y'all.
Only organize if they get together. But see what the communists did, they started an information system, a squealing system, an informing system. And what we found in Korea, they had the most massive, widespread information system ever on earth, where people were recognizing other people or identifying other people who were planning on escaping. And what the communists were doing was telling people, look, your responsibility now as a prisoner. If you hear about another prisoner talking about escaping, it's your responsibility to inform on him and tell on him. And if you do that, we'll reward you. You get an extra candy bar and apple. And once that happens, you see pretty soon, the soldiers didn't know who to trust anymore. They didn't know who to tell anything to. If he was planning on escaping, who did he tell? He didn't know when the other guys were going to turn him in for a reward. And so the organization broke down, and they quit communicating and sharing information to each other. But all of a sudden, you were planning on escape. Next day, someone drags you out in the cold, strips you down, and pours ice water on you, and it's 26 below zero because somebody just turned you in for an apple and a piece of candy. And see, that's what happened in Meritorious Manumission in 1710, when blacks are being rewarded for turning in other blacks. See, also what it does is not only does it stops your communication, it stops your business, your ability to organize, but also it broke down what we have to have as a sense of community. In none of those camps do they have a sense of community anymore in Korea. Without a sense of community, you have no way of doing the things that have to be done for human beings. And so in the prison war camps in Korea, all of a sudden the camps became filthy, the black camps. Nobody built latrines. Nobody made sure there was food and blankets passed out. Nobody took care of the sick. Because you don't have a community anymore. Without a community, you can't do anything. So we didn't have a community in Korea, in the camps. And out of the 7,000 prisoners you had in Korea, almost half of them died. They didn't die because anybody shot them. They died from the fact that they were unable to function appropriately, to take care of themselves, to function as a community. They no longer had what you got to have and what black folk had taken from them through Meritorious Manumission. See, once you get a community, the next thing you must have above that is your trust. You cannot have trust if you don't have a community. I always hear black folks say, Doctor, that's the only thing you say are true, but how can I get another black folk when I don't trust them? You don't trust them because you don't have a community. And and above trust comes cooperation. But Dr. I don't want to work with him. No, because you don't trust him. So it goes community, trust, cooperation. And that's what they did in Korea. They killed the community. The black soldiers no longer had a community, and prisoners no longer had a sense of a community. They no longer had a sense of who they were, what they were about, the business of, and who they were. And all of a sudden, that kind of an oppressive system of rewarding people for identifying with the enemy, and that's what the Koreans are doing, saying you identify with us, and we'll reward you and give you a can and an apple. And when they started rewarding people, the community was destroyed. And their soldiers fell apart. And over half of them died. And so the next thing that happened to them is what also happened to the black community. After 1710, they moved into a thing what we call give-up-itis. All of a sudden, the soldiers in Korea, in those camps, no longer cared about anything anymore. When I come into the Crenshaw district and I said, why don't you do this? They said, we don't care anymore. Same thing happened in the prisoner of war camps. The soldiers didn't care. And once they lost caring, it was through. Nobody could save them.
How many times we hear in a rap song, I don't care about nobody, I don't care about this and I don't care about that. How many times we hear that in a rap song? Promoting you to not to care.
Save them anymore. And at night, over 40% of those soldiers would pull blankets over their head and just sit there in the corner and die for no apparent reason. Not for physical reasons. It was called give-up-itis. You've seen it in hospitals. That's when a person would die long before he's supposed to. And you ask why? When a husband passed and the wife would die 6 months later, 3 months later. Not for any medical reason, because they no longer have a will to live. And that's what happened in those camps. We lost over half our soldiers because they lost their will to live. And see, after meritorious manumission was put on black folk in 1710, black folk, a lot of them began to lose their will to live and to care and be responsible. So jumping back to 1710, so you understand what brainwashing is and the impact on black folk. I want you all to understand that was a re-educational system. So that happened in 1710, the word spread. And down in Jamaica, there was a fellow named Willie Lynch that heard about it. And he was already running a seasoning school for slaves in the South, in Jamaica. So then he caught a boat and headed for America, headed for Virginia, where the meritorious manumission had been initially enacted. He got there in 1712. And just like the communists did in Korea, he came up with the same expression, gentlemen, I'm here to take care of your needs. I can show you how to do what you want to have done. I can show you how to divide these slaves so they'll never recover, or at least it'll take 300 years before they can do it. So some of you might wonder why I picked in my book the year 2013. This coming year in 2013 would be almost exactly 300 years since Willie Lynch put his methods on black folk. He said it would take 300 years. He said, what I'll do is to show you how you divide blacks. You divide blacks on the lines of skin color. You rig it so every black will look at another black skin color first and say, is he a yellow black or black black? And that way you've already divided them. You divide them along the line.
How many times have we done that? And I say we because I'm a part of that too. I've done it. But then I realized, like, once I started talking to like different type of people and ancestry came out, we all got black in us. We all got, like, somewhere down the line, we all got everything in us. So that's why I stopped kind of like doing that. I was guilty of that when I was like a teenager, and in my 20s, like I say, early 20s, late 20s, I started like, I don't know about this, because I made friends with a lot of people, not just white people, not just black people, Indians, Filipinos, Koreans. I have a Japanese godmother, and she's married to a white guy, They have their ways about them and how they feel. And As long as you show me, I can respect that. Um, when you make a move towards me, I understand it. But best believe I'm not caught off guard by it. The ones that we gotta look out for are the foxes. And the foxes are people who, you know, tricksters. The ones who think, show you one thing and they are really just this. Oh, we have a lot of them in America. Boy, it's scary how many people we have in America right now who just put on this face. And it's mainly the people that are on TV that you see. Like that do the interviews. Um in my own way, the only person I could say I can respect how they're moving is 50 Cent. Um, he's bringing a lot of people in. Yeah, that's cool, whatever. But what I need you guys to understand is 50 is showing you something. He's bringing 48 laws of power out on a move on a plate, and different ways of getting that power and exercising the power. The power always can change hands, just depending on how you dealing with it. Let's get back to the video.
Lines of sex. So that all of a sudden you have black women joining the feminist movement against their own black men. They're trying to beat them out of jobs and opportunity and visibility to take care of their families. So you divide them along the lines of sex. Then you divide them along the lines of age, where the old turn against the young turn against the old, and say, you're ancient, you're old, I don't want to listen to you anymore. And it works very effectively. And Willie Lynch put that on them. It's called divide and conquer. Divide and conquer was the same in 1710 as it was in 1950 in Korea. And black folk became invited. And so from 1750 up to about from 1710 up to 1750, the system started going into effect. The social conditioning, the brainwashing of black folk took off full steam then. Well, see, now they were very concerned about all these black slaves. We had to control them. And people said, well, how do you control, how are we going to control them? And said, the first way, and there are three ways you do it, but the first way is by physical control. Always control a black person physically. That's what slavery is about. The second way of controlling was called Jim Crowism. Then you control him legally. And the third way you control him is when we came out of the civil rights movement, which means symbolically. You control him by manipulating symbols. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So they went into the first thing of controlling black folk physically with slavery. By 1750, the black population got up to 34% in America. And they were very concerned about this because you see all these slaves were pouring in across the water, so they started advertising to bring in more immigrants. They said, what we need are more white immigrants to dilute. Remember, I told you the Diversity Act said we must have so many whites. So we got to have an immigration law that bring in more whites to neutralize blacks out, to keep them contained, to keep them as a minority. We'll fix it so they'll love that word minority. They'll use it all the time and call themselves that. Even though we know the minority means loser. We'll turn the world upside down. They'll call themselves loser, loser, loser. So by 1750, black population hit 34%. So what the white society started doing then, it says, we must do what they didn't say that then, but the effect was the same. What happened in Korea? We must isolate them. So every Indian treaty from that point on started putting in conclusions saying that you must also stay away from black folk. They built into all the Indian treaties incentives for them not to identify with black folk because they afraid that if Indians and blacks got together, they could overthrow the country. So Indians were given incentives then to turn against black people. And that's why later on you find that the biggest killers of black folk for a long period of time were Indians, because they were given incentives. For instance, if you raided a town or a village, guess who the first person you run into in the fields was a black person. And seeing you had laws, because the slave codes of 1705 says a black person could not arm himself, he couldn't carry a weapon, he couldn't carry a tool, he could not raise his hand to defend himself, he could not strike back. So Indians say, hey, we got a good guy to raid. I mean, this is like shooting ducks. And the whites knew that. And they put the blacks out in the field, they used blacks for burglar alarms. So every time there was an Indian raid, they the ones that went down first. And that's why all the 5 civilized tribes in America then became slaveholders. All the 5 civilized Indian tribes were slaveholders. Not only were they slaveholders, they were slave traders. And more important than that, in all the treaties, typically in a treaty, they paid the Indians $20 for every runaway slave they chased down and brought him back. And that's why also when the Civil War came, all the 5 civilized tribes in America fought with the side of the South to prefer slavery, because they didn't want to lose their money and wealth either. And I still have blacks running around saying, well, I'm half Indian. Nobody wants to be black. I mean, even if here's people that have been misusing your people too, but you don't want to be it. They'll tell me about how, well, I'm 3/4 white. I can't stand black folk. I'm 3/4 white. I said, why would you want to be white rather than blacks? I said, blacks didn't enslave you. Blacks didn't Jim Crow you. Blacks didn't castrate and lynch you and exploit you. And see, that's that upside down, that would make black folks see things upside down and wrong. It's inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior pattern was instituted on us to make sure we saw everything backwards. That way, when we ran, we thought we were running the right way, we were running the wrong way, and they knew it. That's what we tell black folk all over America. My people, black folk, are doing everything wrong. They're not even doing wrong right.
Everything wrong, but not even doing wrong right.
Because you see, everything is pointed upside down for us, so they can't see which way to run. And so at that time, in 1750s, the colonies then tried to figure out how to contain the whole issue. So we got our controls in place, we got the social conditioning in place, and I think we got blacks pretty well where we need them. We got them nailed down. So then they then started telling England, don't send any more slaves over here to make sure it works. The Continental Congress sent all kinds of letters to England saying, don't send any more slaves to make sure our system of control works. But England said, no, I'm gonna keep sending them. We're getting rich off of it. England said, we're making a fabulous amount of money because we set up the Navigation Act in 1650, which says, I don't care what you all produce in America, it must come back to England first to be processed, and you all buy it back from us. And when you buy it back from us, we're going to charge you 3 or 4 times the price of it. And so when England decided to have a Revolutionary War to break away from England, they didn't put that in the history book, what the real reason they want to break away from England was for. 1, because they were scared to death of black folk getting free over here and tying them with the Indians. 2, they wanted to reverse that whole shipping process, saying that if we've made all the products in America, we raise the cotton, the corn, the beans, the rice, and everything, why are we sending it to you and buying it back from you? So that's what the Revolutionary War was over. And plus, England was also getting rich off the slaves, because England was only paying $25, $35 a piece for every slave they were buying on the west coast of Africa. $25 to $35 a piece. But they created a system called capitalism, which says that I also want a 1,500% return on my money and my investment. Which means if I pay $25 for a black slave on West Africa, I want to be able to sell them in America for $400 to $500 a piece. And so England was becoming a very rich and powerful nation. Like most of it. But that was on not only England, but you had all the other slave countries became rich. That was Portugal, Spain, England, Germany, and the Arab nations. All of them were getting wealthy off of black folk, off a combination of 2 things, extracting the wealth out of Africa, material wealth, and selling the human labor. And after the Revolutionary War, first act of Congress, as soon as they set up a Congress in the United States, the first act of Congress said, let's solve this problem with the slaves. So the first thing they did was pass what they call the First Immigration Act. That says this is a white nation, And the quota on blacks coming here other than as a slave is zero. Zero, zip, none, nothing. And that stayed in effect until 1966, when it was raised to 0.5%. And I still see black folk displaying inappropriate behavior. They can't figure out why you cannot get Haitians into the country. I said, God knows, don't you know what your law is? The reason you cannot get Haitians into the country because they're still fearful of you getting a large, significant black population and being a threat to the society. I said, anytime you got boats floating around off the west coast of Africa for 3 months, you had over 3,000, 4,000 blacks on there who were sick, starving to death. Not one single country offered to bring them in, not this country. At the same time, this country has had refugee programs for every racial and ethnic extraction on earth but black folk. And where's our civil rights leaders? Where's our black leadership? Why aren't they raising issues about it? Instead of them going down there and say, why can't blacks come in from the islands and from Haiti? They do the same thing because they're seeing things upside down and backwards. They do the same thing the whites do. Say, well, what we need to do is invade that country and make them stay there. Let's improve the conditions there. And so that way they have nice places there. Rather than say, no, you didn't improve all the conditions in Mexico, and El Salvador, and Nicaragua, and Hungary, and all these other countries when the people came in. You didn't improve all the conditions in Vietnam to bring in the people. Why do you keep asking these special things, blacks? No leadership will raise the question. Because you see, no black leadership in America wants to raise the real issues about why we cannot raise our population and others can. Yeah. In a social democracy where the majority will win and the minority will lose, we are the only planned, systematically, permanently classified minority. Which means that we are the only people who will always lose based on immigration laws and the quotas coming into this country.
Now that he said that, I want to take you to that was 8 years ago. So I want to say that was before Obama got into office. So like we had a black president that could have raised those type of issues, and he didn't. He played the field, and like a lot of y'all praise him for playing the field. Even my parents do it. And like I don't understand. He didn't. This is my personal belief. I don't see where he improved blacks as a whole. He got in there, he did his time, he ran his 2 years, he got the hell up out of there. Now I see him like buddy with the Bushes and the Clintons. I don't get it. Like, ooh, I'm so happy he said that. Like, man, like, Obama's the perfect example of what he's saying. You get these public figures in there, and we last on the list. We're not even on the list. Even with our own president, if you want to call him that. It's kind of sad. Like, a lot of people believed in Obama. They loved Obama. And I can't get down with him, man. I can't swallow that pill. And the fact that he had Joe Biden in the remarks he said about Joey. I mean, the remarks Joey said about blacks in a whole. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, and he got the most votes. Man, you can't tell me this system ain't rigged. Why are we still voting? Everybody has a phone in their hand. We can't do like they already have the driver's license app. You can't go through your driver's license app and goddamn and go vote. You can't do that. And have your face right there. Boom. I vote for it. Boom, 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 boom. Verification. For those who don't have a phone, you register their phone. Or every 4 years, you have a app on there on your phone where it pops up, and you can go ahead and vote. Or you make sure by the 4th year you go ahead and register your phone number and your ID and on your phone. Like, why not? It's ridiculous. The games that the Congress is playing, they playing games. And like, to me, the United States ain't nothing like, based off the history of what he's telling me. Um, United States is extortioners. They extort the American people, and it don't matter what color you are. They can make money off of you, especially when you get a big bonus if you're black, and they can make money off of you. That's like the best bonus you can get, and like, so that's the gold ticket. You are the gold ticket. But best believe, above a P Diddy is a Clive Davis. Best believe that. Let's see.
Country. Unless we start very specific ways of dealing with it, that's what Powernomics is about. That's what I tell you, you got to start changing the rules, turn things back upside down. You got to always practice how do you get to be the majority. Never do anything where you're going to be a minority. Do it where you're going to become the majority. Don't move to be a minority, move to be a majority. And we're going to talk about that a little later on how you play these games and learn how to win in Powernomics. But you see, as I said, by 1790, the law had locked us out as the only permanent loser. And they said that anybody losing in society from now on, it would be black people. They're the only people that cannot increase their population significantly to be a threat to this country. By the late part of the 1790s, they said what other kind of external controls can we put on black folk? Because now someone want to learn, someone want to try to join the religious movement in this country. And in religion, we say that everybody's a brother. And we baptize them and make them a Christian. How do we deal with that fact? So they passed a law saying that Christianity did not relieve your heathenism for a black person. And they did not want, after that time, there are a few blacks that didn't go into church, but they were sitting in white churches, and they had to be monitored and watched, as I told you, because of the Diversity Act. So when the evangelical movement started moving through this country in the turn of the first of the 1800s, early 1800s, they said, we'll let blacks have their churches, but we can always also, but we must pick the ministers, and we must license the ministers. We must pick ministers that we can control. No black preacher can come into America unless he is controlled by the white establishment, unless he represents our interests and our values, unless he teaches our form of Christianity. Now, this is very important. Why? Because you see, before, religion was always used to help a population group. When it comes to blacks, we cannot let religion be used to help them. You see, the Catholics, church took after care of all those groups who call themselves Catholics. Jews, priests took care of the Jews. And even today, you go into the conflicts in England or Ireland, where you see the Protestants and the Catholics fighting. I guarantee you that the Protestant members will be representing their people and protecting them. I guarantee you that the Catholic priests will be representing the Catholics and protecting them. If I take you into the Middle East with the Arabs, I guarantee you Khomeini will be taking care of Arabs. Only in America can I find black ministers who can be bought and sold to be against their own people. Nobody else will let you do that. No population will tolerate that except our people. And that's what I call inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior pattern when you let your own ministers sell you out. It's not in your best interest. What I mean by sell you out is because by the early 1800s, the whites said, well, we're going to have black ministers. We're going to have to Christian them to make sure they do what we want to have done. They must teach Christianity the way we want it taught, to where it is an external control device on black folk. They said, what are the rules? One, that every minister we license must teach black folk. And we talk about the slave and the master in the Bible, that you're talking about the white man and the black man on earth. Two, you must teach the minister black folk that they are to be loyal, faithful, obedient, respectful, and all those other good things, and honest, so that white people don't have to worry about them stealing as a slave. Because black slaves had a nasty habit of going.
Okay, so now I kind of understand why y'all like cook Kanye. Yeah, I get it now. Like, okay, so he went on publicly, regardless of his feelings about it, he still went on publicly. But I mean, at least he had the balls to say it. Like, I respect the guy for saying it. You know, I respect him for like being the coon that he is, I guess. And, you know, and he just to me, Kanye just he's seen another side of the fence, and he's like, hey, you know, we don't have to fight a black and white war. Truthfully, it's a war with everyone, but we can't hold grudges against everyone, not even them. You know, we have to. I feel like let's stop complaining about it. And let's try to change these tables. Change the dynamics. Dynamics can always be changed. Just a matter in the way that you hit the ball. And if you hit the ball with force, it'll go in the hole. Or you might scatter a few things around, but it created an effect with your force just by you going in. And the force I feel like they're creating is all these deaths, the continuation of promoting death, killing, music, the promotion of drugs, the promotion of our women being prostituted out, or just not caring about their bodies and about how they give themselves away when they do give themselves away. Children, as far as like kids go, like, okay, I'm gonna do a video on my take on baby daddies and baby mamas. But I feel like if you're gonna go as far as to create life, if you're even gonna go as far as to lay down in the bed together and actually create that act within, just keep in mind that there's a nine times out of 10 chance you can get this woman pregnant with or without a condom on, just because you're doing it. So or 1 out of 2 chance you can get this woman pregnant. Because really, it's 1 out of 2 chances, like, or 2 out of 3. Like, if you want to put it like that, just the fate happens, and like that might be a evil soulmate of yours that you try to get rid of a lifetime ago, and you're continuously attaching yourself because of the weaknesses you have, because you can't say no, you can't control yourself with, and therefore we can't have control within our community. You have to be able to control yourself. Say no to the most tempting things that you know will bring all of us down. If one of us look at how the like if one of us don't like and one of us don't do the right thing, and everybody else is doing the right thing over here. Everybody else is doing the right thing, and that one person is doing the wrong thing. You're gonna have a couple people over there, and I watched that happen before. You're gonna have a couple people over there be like, "Man, they ain't doing the right thing. They still getting paid. Let me like go over here and try to talk to them just to see if I can get away with it." And that's how it works. So when you see someone not doing the right thing, you automatically check them. And I got checked. I got checked. You know, on a couple occasions. They're like, I was chilling at the job, and just cared more about doing this than just doing my job. And I didn't realize how it was affecting me in that way. So kind of like I was like, damn man, for a while I didn't get it, but I finally got it because somebody had to check my ass. And I was like, damn. So it's a growing process, and I appreciate that young sister. I appreciate it because I thought I was doing the right thing, but I really wasn't. Not in everybody else's eyes. And sometimes you can think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. And just because somebody have a disagreement with you on that certain thing doesn't mean you should stop doing what you're doing, or we should all just put them on the shelf. Just correct their ass, and if they don't want to change what they're doing, or they don't want to uh just like acknowledge it. To me, it's just all about acknowledgement. Like, acknowledge it. Acknowledge that you heard it. If you don't want to change it, I don't have to stand around you. I can just move you over here to the people and point you in the direction of the people that possibly would want to hear that type of thing. Like, and basically that's what's on my channel. Like, I barely have anybody watch it, but hey, it is what it is. It's for people who want to hear what I got to say. That's it, and that's all. Let's get it.
Going around stealing
I ain't
scraps
gonna
of
finish
food
this
because they
whole
were starving to
video.
death. They would tell me they must be industrious. Especially white folks wanted you to work a little harder. So they use the term, he's a lazy slave. Now, anybody in right mind got more than a third grade education would say, why would a slave want to be industrious? Why would you want to work hard as a slave? What's in it for you? Are you going to get released early? You going to get a pension? Social Security, retirement. But they always got this thing about, why, he's a lazy slave. I even got a black writer writes about that day. Part of the problem is the blacks were lazy slaves. He should have been lazy. The third thing they put on you is that, well, the black ministers must also teach them to get pie in the sky after death. Going to turn their world upside down. So while everybody else is competing to get resources, to get wealth, to get power, black folk are saying, I'm waiting for mine in the sky. They said, well, the role model would be Jesus Christ. I said, yeah, Jesus Christ and all the Jews were very powerful people, had money. Solomon was the richest man on earth. You go look at Matthew, I think Matthew 23, when they start talking about the talent. But different slaves had talents. And two of them went out and developed their talents and multiplied and made something. And one buried and hid his. Because they knew that would be that black one, to be that last one, go out and hide it. Y'all understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, man. Because that's why I created this video. So I can just like stop hiding who I am as a person. Like, because people and their opinions. But God had to get me to a place where I could deal with all that, you know? Like, I am what I say I am. If I wasn't, well, I say I am. It is what it is. Like, that's just your personal opinion on it. Like, nobody knows what's right and what's wrong until we pass away. But I am going to acknowledge that the sun does come up every day and darkness does fall. So there is a yin and the yang to the situation, a good and a bad to the situation. And I feel like where black folks messed up was enslaving our own people and then showing that to the world. That made, in their eyes, you thought it made us look strong because nobody else could capture us. But in their eyes, it made you look weak because you would actually do that to your own people. Like, wait a minute. I would have been like, wait a minute. Like, you know how you be like, okay, like if a dude be like, say, okay, there's this clip on YouTube I seen, and the dude was like, all right, man, I'm about to go get some condoms. I'll be back. And then he goes to the store and he was like, the dude was like, nah, man. He's like, you want to go to the store and me get some condoms? He's like, nah, man, I hit raw. So the girl was just sitting there, and so when he left, she kind of like bent over. She's like, I gotta tie my shoe. You wanna help me tie my shoe? Bent over and everything. You know, kind of like that. Kind of like that. Like, y'all gotta understand. We gotta take responsibility. We have to take responsibility on this one, guys. Like, he ain't know what to do. Dude ain't know what to do. Dude ain't know what to do. Didn't know what to do, yo. But on any other note, like I'm almost done with my blunt, so I'm about to wrap this shit up. But hidden talents, hidden talents, hidden talents, man. I hide my talents a lot, and I created this video just to express myself. Just get it out there. Get what I'm looking at on YouTube, what I'm looking for, and maybe one day I create a Patreon and really tell y'all what's on my mind. I don't know. Like I I feel like we can we can overcome this. This is easy. I feel like this is easy to overcome. But the actual getting there part. All I need is the money, honestly. All I need is the money. I see what we can do. I see what we can do. I see what we can do. It's bad. This shit is too easy, bro. Black Lives Matter should be ashamed of themselves.
Now, but during that period of time, though, in the 1800s, when they started putting all the religion on them to start controlling them, a few blacks said, well, wait a minute now, because something just happened down in Haiti. Now, I know that I can guess in the future, y'all aren't going to let the Haitians into this country. But in the 1800s, what happened was Toussaint Overture. Toussaint Overture took his little band of rabble-rousing blacks in Haiti and beat the devil out of all the French troops.
I remember that.
Ran them raggedy. Beat the devil out of them. Now, that was important because for two reasons. First of all, that is the only time in Western history where the white society blinked and black folk took advantage of them and beat them. Y'all remember that? Only time in history that blacks ever broke free of that conditioning system I told you in 1710, the same one they used again in the Korean War. And again, the reason I want to point out that system to you, that brainwashing system, why is it so important? You all remember this, and why it's so important. And that's why I must give the dominant white society praise for this. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're some very smart people. Very smart. Clever. Why did I say that? Because, you see, the people that put that system on black folk in 1710, they had the equivalent of a third or fourth grade education. And here we are today, 250 years later, or 200-something years later, almost 300, and black folk with doctor's degrees and master's degrees can't figure it out. Now, but little Toussaint Overture down in Haiti, he won his battle, beat him good. Now that meant when he beat him, though, they finally tricked him and said, well, now that you've beaten us, wouldn't you like to come together and integrate? He went to discuss it with them at a meeting. They captured him, put him on a boat, and shipped him to someplace in Europe, some country where in Iceland, one of those, I think Finland or someplace, and it's frozen to death up there in the prison because he went to co-op. And I told you in Korea and the brainwashing techniques, there's another principle that says that anytime you want to control anybody, I can control anybody who's willing to talk and compromise and discuss with me. I can get into compromise. And see, what we're trying to teach our soldiers was called a code of conduct in Korea, which says never talk to your enemy unless it's on your turf and your terms. And see, right now, with I'm assistant police commissioner, I'm working as a therapist for prisoners. Anytime I get somebody to communicate and talk with me, I got him. If he'll speak to me and answer my questions, I got him. Sooner or later, he's going to break down and tell me what I want to know. The way you resist is you don't communicate. You don't compromise your principles.
Verse 48. Verse 48 at its finest. Damn. That boy good. That boy good. I ain't gonna lie, that boy is good.
Principles. They can never beat you then. And see, and that's how they got Overture. They asked him, don't you want some integration? Like I told our leaders, the same thing. Now, there were some other blacks who jumped up and said, I'm not going to go for that okie doke. One of the first ones in 1800 was Gabriel Prosser. Gabriel was an extremely smart black guy. He says, I just heard about what Toussaint Overture did down in the islands. And said, if Toussaint can do it, I'm going to do it here. He said, I'm going to do the same thing. And he did some planning and you couldn't believe. He worked, he planned, he schemed. Prosser really worked on his thing. And he planned one of the most devastatingly, strategically well-planned insurrections on earth. And before I tell you what he did, let me go back and make this point. I tracked between 1710 and 1860, and we had a possible 150 to 200 possible slave revolts. And in all 150 to 200 of them, a black person squealed in every one of them and got his meritorious manumission and his Willie Lynch badge card. And so when Prosser was trying to pull his together, he planned his scheme. And when the day he was supposed to have his big revolt, would you believe one of the most severe storms that ever hit Virginia came in and washed out most of the land and roads and bridges, and Prosser's group couldn't get together, their gathering point, because they were planning on hitting three things. They were planning on taking over the penitentiary in Richmond. They were planning on taking over the armory, and they were planning on attacking the town and annihilating the town, everybody except the Methodists and the Quakers, who had befriended them. And the storm struck just as they were going to assemble. And only 300 showed up, and Prosser said, well, since only 300 of us here, let's put it off until next week when the land is dry and clear. And within 3 days, a black person squealed. Prosser was arrested along with 35 of his supporters. They were executed, hanged, and heads chopped off and put on poles. But the two blacks that did the squealing, one was called Tom, the other was called Pharaoh. And I don't know, God knows it because I don't know. Why is the name of a black person Tom? You almost guess he's going to do something. Now, I don't know, and I don't mean to put down anybody named Tom, but there's something about that name. And Pharaoh itself is not too much of an exciting name. I wouldn't trust that name either. If somebody my mother named me Pharaoh, I know I'm in a world of trouble too. But anyway, Tom and Pharaoh turned in Prosser. They executed Prosser, chopped his head off, along with some other, and hung him up on poles. But the thing that became very important in that case, though, was that the town was really fearful because they found out from rumors that Prosser had lined up somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000 slaves. The whites all through Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina was paralyzed. Their mouths fell open, their eyes popped. They said, something is wrong. You mean tell me we put a conditioning system on black folk where we turn everything upside down? And this black guy was able to do the impossible without an education? Something is wrong with our system. What's wrong? And I'm serious. This was a big issue. They had to find out how does one black guy get together as a slave and have something between 5,000 and 50,000 blacks ready to fight, and had not been for a storm, they'd have taken over the country. And finally came out to another rumor, speculations, that what it was that he had beat the symbolism. Show you how important symbols are. That's why I keep talking about powernomics. To get out of your system, sometimes you're lost. You look up at a mountain, you look up at a peak, you look for the Penobscot building or the Empire State Building, you find your symbol, and you can find your direction. And what that black Prosser done, he looked at the state seal. The state of Virginia had a seal where it had a white man lying prostrate and a black man's foot on his chest. White and the black guy was called, and then in the seal it says Verticus overcomes Tyrannus. And that black man had used that seal as his motivating force, his guiding light for his people. And when whites found that out, immediately they changed the Virginia seal and said, get rid of that seal fast. And put up guards around the Capitol to make sure it didn't happen again. And that was in 1800. By 1821, another black named Vesey got equally as concerned. He had heard about it. He said he's going to try it in South Carolina and try another revolt. But VC says up front, VC organized his group. He walked around. He was a free black. He got free because he bought his own, paid $600 and freed himself. He won money in a lottery. But he's very upset because he couldn't buy his children out of slavery. So VC would walk through the town in Charleston, South Carolina, telling black folk, get that hump out of your back. Straighten up. Be respectful. Take care of your own people. Look out for your own people. Quit trying to worry about everybody and look out for yourselves. And VC he was a big man too, a big broad man. He said, I'll break your back if I catch you bending over. And he planned an insurrection. He called something like about 300 to 500 together to take over Charleston, South Carolina. But he told them up front, he said, let me tell you all something. He says, if I catch one black in this group trying to get meritorious manumission, he said, I'm going to snap your neck like a twig. And he planned a revolt. And unfortunately, again, 2 days before his revolt was supposed to occur, not only was he squealed on once, he was squealed on twice. So VC was picked up along with about 37 of his people and hung. Because again, they sold him out. Then by 1831, Nat Turner, you already know about, tried the same thing a few years later in 31. Nat Turner says that I'm not even going to go through those changes. I'm not going to do what VC did. I'm not going to do what Prosser did. I'm not even going to play that silly game. He said, what I'm telling you I'm going to do? He said, I'm going to break out of here. I'm getting me a knife, gun, sword, stick, tools, bricks, anything I can get. I'm killing anything I see that moves, crawls, jumps, walks, and talks. That's exactly what I'm quoting him. He says, I'm the rod and staff of God. I'm not playing these silly games. I'm tired. And so Turner started walking, saying he was a sword in the voice of God. He said, I'm going to kill anything I see moving. He killed 55 people, including his own master. And then the country got petrified again and sent the army in looking for him. They searched for Nat Turner for 2 months and couldn't find him. He hid out because he killed so many people. Until one day he needed food and went down to get some blacks to get some food. And guess what happened? Turned them in. And so that took care of Nat Turner. Same time as one other black, though, which is my hero. How much time I got? How much? As long as I want. Okay. Okay, thank you. You see, you all are so nice. That's why I love coming to this city. Boy, I swear. I love you. I'm going to move out here pretty soon. But my hero is John Horace. We start talking about inappropriate behavior versus appropriate behavior. Now, here's a black man at the same time period displayed what I call appropriate behavior. No Rodney King stuff, you see? John Horace was a runaway slave who would also run off the South.
All right, y'all, we're going to stop it right here. I'm at the
South.
112, 26. All right, so we're going to pick this back up tomorrow. I'm done with my blunt. All right, if you like this video, I'm going to try to see if I can break it down. I'm going to start experimenting with this. See if I can break this down and chop it up and see if I can make many videos and short videos of this and post them. All right, I appreciate you guys watching. With all love, like I said, please like, share, and subscribe if you did like the video. If you didn't, please hit the like button anyway, and leave your comments below. Peace.